Necropolis, meaning City of the Dead. Cemeteries with elaborate tomb monuments that, with respect to the game, is a good description for what you should expect along your journey through this procedurally generated world. Although I would have hoped the game's community would have remained alive and well, Necropolis did release nearly 4 years ago, and only the wiki seems to be consistently updated. Now, I remember back in 2015 I was watching early gameplay for this in E3.
You've got me very interested in this. Give me a quick rundown of Necropolis and what exactly this is.
So it's we're calling it a 3D action roguelike. So you're going to get the combat of something like a Dark Souls, deeply Dark Souls inspired. We do our own little take on it here and there, but you're also going to get the roguelike element. So you're going to get a procedural game that's different every time, and you're going to get permadeath. So you get one chance. So in a lot of ways, it's almost more hardcore than Dark Souls is.
For this video, I really don't want to review it. Rather, I would like to discuss the lore behind why we have to travel through this place, who the characters are we'll meet along the way. Maybe this video can help you better inform you of the game, and it might interest you. But bottom line up front, I very much enjoy this game and will continue to play it for years to come. I suppose right there I did just review it, but you know, honestly, we can just keep going with it. As a note before I continue, most of the information you'll hear and see in this video can be found on the Necropolis wiki, link in the description below. So let's first talk about the history of not only Necropolis, but where Necropolis is located, and also who created the Necropolis. Who's in charge? Abraxas is his name. He was an archmage who, after all of his conquests and victories, retreated to his necropolis to work his magic, in darkness far removed from civilization. There, in the depths of a huge complex, constructed by magic, lies the greatest collection of magical items and treasures that the world has ever known. According to the wiki, Abraxas is perhaps the most fabled, legendary hero in all of Zothic. Born sometime during Zothic's Fourth Age, the Age of the Splintered Realm. Okay, well, what is or where is Zothic? Zothic is primarily composed of two continents, Midian and Kopesh, which are divided by a sea promptly named the Sea of Glass. In legend, it's said that the sea is riddled with whirlpools, and to cross the sea would be to give your life to its depths. Midian is where the Necropolis can be found, and it's mostly desert. The Necropolis, according to the map shown here, is identified as its original name, the Navel of the World. To the north, the long-forgotten hold of Durat once stood. In the center, the Desert of Ash, with a large river emptying into the Sea of Glass. Allegedly, some parts of Midian are home to raiders. Now, smaller in comparison to Midian, Kopesh is a tundra. Brutes inhabit Kopesh. The social structure of the civilization revolves around somewhat hierarchical system, with the Fane ruling over the Mandesh. To the north in Kopesh, agile predators roam around the Queen Mountains. The underground sea lies to the east, and well, beyond that, it's uncharted. Abraxas was born a Kopeshi, but of the Mandesh, not the Fane. After escaping the Mandesh barracks of Irem as a child during a particularly brutal pillow fight, he traveled across the Sea of Glass. According to legend, Abraxas rescued Slyn, the goddess of knowledge. She joined him on his journey, and as a gesture of thanks, showed him how to steal the Tomb of the First Secret. This tomb was the first of 3 arcane mysteries. Upon understanding the Tomb of the First Secret, Abraxas set out to bring peace and understanding to Zothic. Coincidentally, the demon emperor Ulixteractus began contaminating the mortal plane. It is said that Ulixteractus was so large his shadow fell across all of Zothic. The demon emperor was also known to have put to death anyone who could not pronounce his name. Abraxas had found his first notable adversary since the barracks of Irem. Honestly, it sounds like the pillow fight and then a demon emperor. Like, that's kind of a big jump. But you know what? I'm not going to judge. He can fight whoever he wants. Not much is known about the wars that transpired between Ulixteractus and Abraxas. save for the outcome. Upon the cliffs of Red Despair, Abraxas killed the Demon Emperor, but not without the cost of his own self. Though Ulicksteractus had died, some parts of Abraxas were said to have died as well. The Fifth Age, the Age of the Onyx Throne, was ushered in when Abraxas defeated Ulicksteractus. Much of Abraxas' accomplishments occurred during the Fifth Age. At a location called Iz, Abraxas defeated a total of 7 Lich Kings, one after another, all of which held Iz in their power. Ultimately, it seemed destined that Iz would be ruled by a Lich King. For every one Abraxas defeated, the people of Iz begged and allowed the rule of another Lich. Upon defeating Sut, the 7th Lich King, Abraxas finally left Iz to its fate. An unspecified amount of time later, the demon Sultan Gravix attacked the City of Pillars. Abraxas, now at this time known as Lord of all Mirrors, came to the city's aid. It is said that he realized that Gravix was possessed by the spirit of Ulicksteractus. The Demon Emperor's spirit had somehow survived and slithered through the world like an oily serpent. It was around this point in time where Abraxas tore time asunder, and in its gap he built the Navel of the World. No details are recounted of the event, but Abraxas defeated Gravix, possibly with the help of his newly created Navel of the World. He then anointed the legendary 13 of the best mages, fighters, and spies to be found across all of Zothing. Entrusting them to bring peace and justice to the land, Abraxas again shut himself away to work on his magic, this time in his Navel of the World. This coincided with the Hanged Lord of the East rising up to terrorize the land, a threat which Abraxas left to his newly appointed followers. Abraxas was said to be around his 500th year of life around this time. As the years passed, Abraxas grew more and more disinterested in the mortal world. He never returned from his seclusion. While it's unknown as to what specifically denotes when the present Sixth Age, the Age of the Haunted Winds, started, Abraxas is still accounted for. The event may have been the Archmage's incident, which was responsible for the Navel of the World's rebranding as the Necropolis. The Archmage himself is rumored to still remain somewhere deep inside the Necropolis on his Onyx throne. So that's the life of Abraxas so far as lore goes. I've yet to notice the Onyx throne. Perhaps I came across it while I was on my journeys through the Necropolis, but I don't remember seeing it. Abraxas anointed the Legendary 13, and while reading through, the Legendary 13 traveled into the Necropolis, possibly to find Abraxas. But there's no clear answer as to this, as, well, all of them perished within its labyrinths. Cyril, the Clever, the last to join the 13, ultimately betrayed the other 12 to the Brazen Head while they were in the Necropolis. The only notable deed the 13 had accomplished was defeating the Hanged Lord of the East around the same time Abraxas withdrew into the Necropolis. While journeying through the layers of the Necropolis, you can find the armor of the 13 and wear them for special powers. Now with that in mind, let's begin to venture into the Necropolis and explore the creatures each adventurer may face along the way. The further one ventures into the Necropolis, the more menacing and powerful the creatures become. This may have been a defensive mechanism entrusted to the Brazen Head from Abraxas, or it could have been the Archmage's incident. But what is known is that one slip-up on any level can lead to dire consequences for an adventurer. The first creature you may come upon are the drop spiders. There are 3 variants of the drop spiders: the spiderling, the spider, and the spider queen. Drop spiders are scampering creatures identified by their many spindling legs and bulbous turquoise abdomen. During my adventures, I have come across many spiderlings and spiders, but I am grateful to have missed a spider queen. They are the strongest of the drop spider variants, as their attacks tend to leave any adventurer in, well, a sticky situation. The next creature you'd possibly encounter is the Fire Djinn. These creatures are formidable enemies, capable of dealing out an uncanny amount of damage to adventurers in a short period of time. Like the stronger enemies, the best chance for survival when encountering the Fire Djinn is to ensure the fight is one-on-one. Other enemies in the area may stagger an adventurer, just long enough for the Fire Djinn to land a few well-placed and fatal blows. They belong to their own faction, Fire Djinn, of which they are only one member. Interestingly enough, Fire Djinn have no attacks based on fire, and the only reference to fire is in its name, its resistance to fire, and, well, perhaps the glowing arm. Gem Eater is its name, and it has often been the first opponent I encounter through the first door. It's rather difficult to beat them with a level 1 weapon, but it's possible. Gem Eaters are huge, ape-like monsters with a toad-like face and bulging eyes. They are usually found in the swamps of Serenian and Palace, and rarely in the Schism, Temple, and Black Forest. One of their most problematic attacks is a wild, long combo of strikes that last for several seconds. For me, however, they tend to make little noise when approaching and can more often than not sneak up on an unsuspecting adventurer. There are 13 variants of the creature, all with differing levels of ferocity. Marked by dark red crystals, the Grind are monsters which manifest as red crystalline creatures. Grind versions of various enemies encountered throughout the Necropolis, as well as black guards equipped in various armor sets. Ordinarily, Grind spawn when a Grind spawner crystal is approached, but also can be found wandering in the swamps of Serenian, and rarely other areas without belonging to any particular Grind spawner crystal. The Grind are alluded to be some sort of infection running rampant throughout the Necropolis. If the Grind enemies are any indication, they may either imitate beings who pass by the Grind spawner crystals, or somehow infect the bodies of those who died in Grind traps. The Grind spawner crystals themselves seem unable to attack directly, instead using Grind creatures as proxies. It's interesting to note that once these proxies are defeated, the Grind spawner crystal dissolves. The next creature you will likely see are the Hordemen. They are filthy remnants of once powerful warriors who now collect and pile treasure and items in hordes around the Necropolis. Hordemen areas are often cleaned out of items, which they have gathered into some central hoard. They fight like berserkers and will do anything to protect their treasure. Some light themselves ablaze, while others, like the Hordeman Father of Knives, are semi-boss creatures with massive health stats to continually attack the player. The Hollowmen are mechanical guards in the Necropolis, on average being approximately the same height as a blackguard. While not overly dangerous by themselves, Hollowmen are seldom ever encountered alone. With the Brutal Edition update, additional variants of the Hollowmen were added into the game who reside in the Boreal Black Forest, the Frozen variant, all of which have different resistances and weaknesses. Resembling a bulkier, scaled-up Hollowmen, the Clockwork Knights are massive, lumbering constructs with rigid movements. In melee, a Clockwork Knight's attack are well telegraphed and slow, but deal a large amount of damage. They are a member of the Clockwork Knight faction, the strongest of which is the Emerald Clockwork Knight, found at the lowest levels and can one-hit all but the strongest adventurers, and even then, survival is really not assured. Bone effigies are among the strongest enemies found inside the Necropolis, also one of the scariest. Though they are impressive in size, these creatures are able to attack at lightning speed. Traveling a great distance and dealing out massive amounts of damage, they are a member of the Bone Effigy faction. Dealing over 80% damage to even the strongest players, these enemies are not for the faint of heart. Armed with a titanic monolith, energy meteors, and its own raw physical strength, the Clockwork Lord is the penultimate clockwork construct, and the Brazen Head's final impasse. Should adventurers manage to overcome the many hurdles of levels 1 through 8, the monstrous boss awaits you at the end of level 9, the Sea of Bones. Combining a tremendous amount of HP with the most powerful attacks of all the Necropolis, the Clockwork Lord is a force to be reckoned with. Adventurers who are poorly equipped upon reaching this level of the Necropolis will have their mettle tested in full force. In order to escape the Sea of Bones and exit the Necropolis, the Clockwork Lord must be toppled and the Amulet of Seoul taken from its massive remains. The Clockwork Lord is immovable, magic immune, and extremely resistant to stagger. The Clockwork Lord is only hostile towards Gem Eaters. Interestingly enough, there are none to be found on level 9. When viewed from the outside, the Sea of Bones appears to spawn multiple Clockwork Lords. The difference is due to the fact that the level generated from viewing from above is distinct from the actual final level, which is generated when going through the portal at the end of level 8. Note that it's still possible to jump down to the cosmetic level. However, due to the large mountain range within the valley, doing so makes the game unwinnable, because no exit has been generated for the cosmetic version of the level. If armed with the jumping codex, however, it's possible to traverse to different mountain valleys and fight several incarnations of the Clockwork Lord. Some areas will be at least partially cut off by large invisible barriers, but these can often be worked around if care is taken to not get the character stuck. The Brazenhead claims that the Clockwork Lord is over a ton of arcane metal, and destroys cities inadvertently. It's any guess as to what cities the Clockwork Lord would have access to in the Sea of Bones, though. According to the Brazenhead, a Clockwork Lord hasn't been killed in over 1,000 years. Additionally, one particular Clockwork Lord has been noted to have killed 23,671 adventurers. I hope this video has given some insight into this amazing game, and I do hope it's motivated you to try your luck through the 9 levels. As always, thank you for watching my videos, and I'll leave you with this quote from the Brazenhead. Thousands have entered the Necropolis. Legend says, somewhere inside, undead and immortal, Praxis presides on an onyx throne. In 10 centuries, only one adventurer has escaped, and I'm afraid he emerged quite mad. But you, I'm sure you'll make it out just fine. You seem like the adventurous type.